Welcome to the Language of Markets live session. It is the 8th of July, Monday. Welcome back. Hey, Phil. All right, Gary, Winston, everybody's here. We had a few internet issues, but we'll see what happens. I was just saying, if the internet issues become an issue, the ground's been shaking out here with all these earthquakes, then we'll just reset everything and come back. Have a nice 4 days off. So everybody have a good weekend, I hope. Good 4th. Enjoy. Do a little bit of practice. I know I did. I did my practice. Actually, at the end of the week this week, I'm going to maybe set something up in Slack and we'll all practice. I want to talk about practice a little bit. You did your practice, Grace? Yes, sir. Sir, yes, sir. All right. It's good to do the practice, right? It's a little bit tedious, and you realize you ain't as smart as you thought you were. But, once you get over that hump, that's good. That's why I want to get this interactive a little bit and get it going in the Slack. I got the funky tails on the... That might just be because of my internet. I need to refresh. That was all good. And this is a good... This is a good thing to show, to make sure your stops are placed, bracket orders. Because I couldn't even get my phone works on the internet here too, and I had a hard time getting my cell phone to work. And so if you got orders cooking, make sure, boom, boom. Yeah, I guess those tails are real, huh? Something funky going on there, Nate. All right. So here's what we're going to do today. Going to do a very quick review of the pressure cooker that we did last week. And I want to spend some time. We're going to spend this next week, 2 or so, working pretty much with 2 things. Following swings and the one-line press. All right, so that's what we're going to be up to. And we're going to simplify our lives a little bit. And that's what we're going to aim our practice towards. We think the swings thing is easy, but there's a lot to it. And so I want to walk us all through it nice and easy. Before we even get started with all that, it's the beginning of the week. And I like to give us something to think about. Last week we thought about what? Observation. Right? What observation is. And so it's good. We want these little things to sort of sit and percolate with us. And I'm going to build things up in stages here. That's what I'm trying to do. So we thought about observation and kind of kept your attention on it all week, hopefully. Maybe you didn't have enough reminders. And so this week I want to consider something else. Since we looked at observation, we mentioned dispassionate observation. All right, so we're going to think about dispassionate observation and what that is and why bother and all of that work. Now, this is going to be a bit of a tricky subject, so just hear me out. And play along. Why would we want our observation to be dispassionate? And if you're listening to the recording, suss this out. Why would we want our observation of something to be dispassionate? And you guys play along, and then we're going to get to some work and to some good stuff, because passion and bias clouds our vision. Okay, that's a basic way to say it, right? Because then you see one side. It does prevent a debilitating bias, right, Winston? So you guys kind of get it. So we're not truly listening if we're only listening to one side. But I also want to ground this. So we need to listen and hear things exactly as they are. It's direct. All right? It's direct. The moment we stop doing that, we choose one side or the other. And we're motivated towards, what we want and what we don't want. And so we miss things. Basically, it's so we can see what's there. That's why we want to consider dispassionate observation. And I'm going to define dispassionate observation, here's the tricky part, as involvement with no attachment to or fear of the outcome. So I'm going to define dispassionate observation as involvement with no attachment or fear of the outcome. So it's kind of tricky if you're not passionate about it to actually stay connected and involved. Because who cares, right? If you don't like it, then you're busy with it. If you like it, you're busy with it. If neither, you get bored. And so this is a bit tricky. So we want to hear things exactly as they are. For instance, anybody shows me a chart. They're getting ready to show me a trade, and they show me a chart. They're getting ready to do a long, all right? Or they're getting ready to do a short, and they have lines drawn for the short or the long, whatever their choice is. You give me that chart, and I can draw the other side. So somebody draws a chart, and they're all bent to get long. You give me that chart, I'll draw an argument for the other side. That's damn inconvenient, isn't it? And so we drop certain things out. That's just mean, Nate says. But I'm not being mean, Nate. I'm saying it's possible. No matter what you show me, I can show you the other side of it. And so we can't just lean towards one thing and leave something out because it's inconvenient. I could make a case for the long. I can make a case for the short, no matter what you show me. And so this is why we go through all this tedious work of working with the swings, because we don't even know we're doing it half the time. 50-50 odds are too bad. Yes, in trading they are, aren't they, Edward? Especially because I could tell you one thing, Edward. You can count on, we can all count on our mind to motivate us in a particular direction with an impulse away from fear and towards comfort. So it's not even 50-50 anymore. And so Winston says, a good way to challenge yourself, take the other side before you pull the trigger. It's a good way to at least say, hey, right, Winston? But we want to think this out a little bit, because this is tricky, all right? Now I'm gonna say we're not going to focus on dispassionate observation this week. I want to come at it from another angle. I want to consider, so I'm just making the case for it. If you're always looking at the good, you're going to leave out the bad. If you're always looking at the bad, you're going to leave out the good. And if you want to do anything skillfully, you got to include everything. Everything. No matter what it is. This all has to do with learning. So I'm coming at this from another angle. And the thing I want to investigate this week is investment. What investment is. Since it kind of goes right along with all the stuff we're doing, right? Investing. So I want to think about investing. So I'm going to come at this from a different angle. Like I said, this is a bit tricky. And I'm talking about being invested in your particular outcome. Personally invested for your long. Personally invested for your short. So what is invested? What is being invested in something? And I ask you to ground this in stuff. So for instance, just look anytime you've ever learned something easily. No matter what it was. Doesn't matter what it was. See, we're all so focused on the result. And we need to focus what gets us to the result, not the result. And so this is why I'm coming at it this way. And so just think about anytime you've learned something very easily, you will see that you were not invested in the outcome of that. There might have even been a sense of play. You guys know what I'm talking about? Just think back to something you might have learned where, you didn't have money on the line. You just weren't invested in it personally. Absolutely. And this can be personal relationships even. Think about your boss, your friends, boyfriends, girlfriends, right? If you were completely invested in getting that person to like you, guess what happens? Well, you can't be yourself anymore, right? That causes a huge tension, and that causes a huge not being relaxed. Gina says, it feels natural. They say she's a natural. Yeah. But just think about it, right? Investment equals commitment. And so commitment, we can say we have a position. If we're stuck with our position of longs and a commitment of longs, that's an attachment to that outcome. That's an investment in me being right. This is a tricky. I just want you to look at it before we even talk about it anymore. So we have an investment in our position with it should be going down, it should be going up. And then when anything challenges that position, well, we inconveniently drop pieces out. And like Gina says, the market really doesn't care. It doesn't know you. It's not personal. It's not personal. But there's a huge relaxation when you're not invested. So the tricky part is we're here to become traders, right? We're here to learn trading. We're here to make money, right? So that there's a certain commitment to that. And the tricky part is to be aloof with that and not be so invested so you can relax, right? There's a tricky part in that. I didn't say it was easy. But the whole point is to learn to see things as they are, not how we want them to be. Just notice how relaxed you get when you're not invested in the outcome. I go and I invent things cooking sometimes when I have time, right? And I don't really care how it turns out. I'm not a cook. It's not going to bother me. And it usually turns out pretty well, and I have a lot of fun, and I learn a lot. Now, if I was invested in being very good and everybody being very happy, I wouldn't have any fun, and it would turn out like crap. Involves return, and if not immediate, then investment is easily questioned, and thus perhaps we were not really invested. Have to think about that, Winston. And so one thing we can do, because we are invested to come in here and make some money, aren't we? I just want you to see the relaxation and openness that happens when you're not invested in the result, in the outcome. So what do we do, right? As long as you know the methods of cooking, you can make anything, right? Yeah, you know the simple principles, and then the whole thing's designed, the whole demand is taste, right? As long as it tastes, and then you serve that. You don't serve yourself, and you don't worry about everything else. And things just go easy. It doesn't matter. It's like doing something for doing something's sake. Now, this isn't easy. So, since we will find ourselves invested, investing is trying harder in the same old loop. One thing we can think about is investing and not being invested. I'm just going to leave that there. Like I said, this is a bit tricky. Just look into your own experience with some of this. That's all. The big problem comes when we are invested in what we want, what we need, and as Gina says, the market doesn't care. We will leave out something. That's the whole point. We will leave out something that doesn't fit. And that's why we get to the end of the week and say, oh, I know that. What happened? And we can pretty much count on being motivated towards comfort and not fear. And trading, there's a lot of risk involved. All right? So with that, I'm going to go into working on swings. So we can always at least ground ourselves in what the market's doing, no matter what we want. I just wanted us to think about investment. And just notice anytime you were invested in anything, you have to protect it. Anything. Besides money, right? Take money out of the equation. Money's so charged. Anytime you are invested in anything, it's a tense situation. And then have you ever had the experience of finally giving up, or giving up your resistance to a position you were trying to get in long and it keeps going down? You ever had that feeling where you just, either they beat you into submission, you know, when you see your account keep going down, or you just give up? And there's a relaxation to that. It's like cleaning the forest. You can just give up. Make the pain stop, right? But if you just give up your position, your investment, and we say, oh, no, we're not here to give up. We're here to go harder, 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 harder. That's why it's tricky. But there's a sense, especially if you have a really bad month, there's a sense of, all right, got that out of your system now. And you give up trying whatever it is you're trying. All right, just some things on the internal side of trading. That's all. All right, now let's go do some work. I'll think about how to say that a bit more. But the best way is to just go look when you're invested. I need it to be short. I need it to be short. What's it doing? It's going up. I need it to be long. I need it to be low. What's it? It's going down. And look, and you'll see that you draw to what you want. Remember, even if you're using fibs, you can draw them up and down and completely ignore things that are just, inconvenient. All right. So we're going to do a little work on at least getting to the facts chat. Before we get that, I had a chart. I have a new member, and he was looking at the pressure cookers and such. And I'm going to do a very quick review on that because he sent me a chart, and then we're going to move on. All right, quick review, because I sent him a chart, said work on it. Pressure cooker. And I'm doing this quick review because it is related to our press structure that we're going to be working on. The pressure cooker, because he had marked something out, and I wanted to just give a very quick review and talk about how it also relates to the press structure we're going to be working on this week. All right, so the pressure cooker is after a new low, you follow it back up into the swing, back up above this guy. Okay, after a new low, you follow it back up above to where they threw him off the cliff. So you follow it back up above to where a decision was made. Somewhere around here. See the press, 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 press. And then you have three types of trades available to that. Now, the one-line press structure we're going to be working on, which is just two same-size confirmed swings and an expansion, is also a press. All right, we're adding a little bit something to it. The biggest difference, see, this is also a where they threw them off the cliff. The biggest difference in what we're doing here, see, this one has a throw them off and an extension. This one has a throw them off and an extension. The biggest difference is what? Anybody? They're the same basic type of structure, right? This one, I'll say it, it's a little, sloped? This one can be sloped or it can be this. But what's the biggest difference in these two. I call this a pressure cooker. I call this a press. Where they're located in the swing. Thank you, Gina, right? See, a pressure cooker is located in a very particular spot. This can be located anywhere. Now, we were fixing where we were looking at this last week. Now we're coming in and we're going to look at this. But I also want you to notice whenever you do see them, okay, whenever you do spot them, I want you to notice where in the major swing they happen to be going on, and just let that trickle over you. So they're pretty much the same thing, except this is in a particular place. But as we start to watch this now we want to say, all right, where is that guy happening? Where is this guy happening? And as you start to see different places it's happening, you'll start to soak in a little bit about context and story and the story price is telling and all that good stuff. We define pressure cooker as a gap. Have we made that requirement in a press? A press is going to be essentially a gap. That's, Nate, it's why we included the expansion of the impulse leg. So they're both contraction, expansion, contraction, expansion. Same thing. There's a method to all this madness, and everything does work together. Really. Everything does go together in these things. It's quite interesting. Got it. All right. Now, we were doing, now let's go to swings, because we're going to work on swings. I gave a student practice. I gave everybody else the same practice on a 13-minute oil. And we started it here. And there's so much to learn, and I'm going to take my time with it, and we're going to draw some models out, and we're going to do some practice on this today. Because all we're going to focus on basically is following swings and this press structure. And then we're going to, and believe me, that's quite a lot. This will eventually lead us into some median line work. But right now we're just going to follow this. Not going to worry about too much else. And then we'll do some review and practice at the end of the week so we get it even deeper. And I'll be pointing things out as we go. So we marked this out. Like I said, it is having to do with median line sets. See, a median line set takes the A to B and projects it from C. Okay, so here's what we want to do. We left it off and followed it down. Okay, let's keep following, but let's draw a few instructions to this. Let me see if I've got something. Give me just a second. Oh, what happened? There we go. Shane, come back, Shane. All right, so let's begin to let's begin to define some things, all right? We started here, and we'll use this as an example, and it really doesn't matter. Pick a place on, you saw, I didn't cherry pick it. We just started that one day, and we'll keep following this as an exercise. But let me put some definitions down, because this is going to be a practice for us. A new low confirms a swing high. A new high confirms a swing low. Okay? We're going to keep practicing, because even when we start doing the presses, remember the objective of the presses is to get us to follow a market and teach us to isolate relative structures. This is part of our training. So this is simple. Basically, a new low confirms a swing high. Now, I started our life here, and it's real simple. A new low confirms that as a high. And it's trading. Don't let the squiggly lines fool you. It's, look, they were going up. Some buyers grabbed it here and took it up. The buyers were not willing, and you can see them, the buyers were just not willing to hold the fort here. Just period, the end. So that confirms a swing high. So it's very objective. It's that simple. The next thing we want to do, maybe we can draw this along our model here. New low confirms a swing high. So the next thing we want to do is understand the components we're dealing with. Okay? Let's see, I got to figure out how to make room for all this. We're going to call this the reaction leg. We're going to call this the impulse leg. I know, this is old hat, right? We have to slow down and back up. So we have a reaction leg. Basically, once you make a new low, there's a reaction to that. And there's a reaction leg. And there's an impulse leg. We're just naming things so we know what to do, when to do it, and where to take, and what to measure. We're just making distinctions along this little wave here, right? We just have a little wave. That's all we have. And so we have a reaction leg, and we have an impulse leg. So it's impulsively taking that guy down. All right. So as we go, let's just mark reaction leg, and then impulse leg. All right, so our next definition is going to be, so we need a way to look at swings, all right? So we need a relative swing definition. Relative swings. And I'm going to define that as major and minor. So major is going to be largest reaction leg in your frame. Minor is going to be next largest. So we're going to use the reaction leg. Now we know what reaction legs are. We're going to use the reaction leg to define relative. And relative is just, same size, okay? Same size. That's all we're trying to do. So to find a relative swing, we're going to look for same size. Same size reaction legs. And then one day we're going to go in here and we're going to play with the impulse legs. And then that's going to lead to action-reaction later on. So we're doing things in stages. It's a lot to take in. This is why we're doing it in stages. So relative swing. So we want to be as objective as possible. So we want it about, right? Give it a little lee room. It's not perfect. And so we always want to be able to pull up any chart, whether it's this, and be able to have a reference point for our lives, you know. Any of you in California felt the earth shake, right? It was like all of a sudden you lost your reference point. The world's shaking. You know, the ground's moving now. Boom, boom. It's a little weird not to have any ground. Grace lost her pool. Well, I think the earth is mad at California. I don't know. I might just swallow all y'all up. I'm not sure. All right. So, you know, we want a reference point, the ground, right? We don't want to be on shaky. We want to see what's going on. And this is how we're going to do it. And so then the next thing we need to do is look for what? Minor swings. You know, we want to see what's the minor swing in this guy. And the minor swing is always going to be the next largest. And so, you know, you want to train your eye to begin to see this. A swing is a swing is a swing. So this is still a reaction leg, but this is a minor reaction leg. So now we can further our definition. And you'll see why this becomes important later on as we get to pull trigger for a trade. And this isn't an old example. We started it live. I wanted everybody to watch this and see this and follow this. And so, you know, we're going to be looking at basically the next largest as we go and we follow this market. All right. Now, the basic instruction to follow is going to be every time price pivots, right? Every time it pivots up, every time price pivots, copy the last reaction legs as a reference point, okay? To measure. So far, it's not too bad, right? So far, it's pretty easy, even though it's still a little bit. Edward says, I'm looking for beach property in Livermore, east of San Francisco. Good luck. Wait a little while. It might get cheap. Especially if the internet goes down. All those guys will be out of a job, Edward. Silicon Valley, they won't know what to do. Have to put them to work shoveling debris, maybe. And so basically, every time price pivots, right, you see a pivot, just copy these two legs. And, you know, observe. Now we're got a handle on it. Okay. We'll have to become floor trade. Yeah, right, Gina? You never know. I mean, trading's trading. All you guys that are burying gold down in the basement, if things get bad, you know what's going to be valuable? Wheat, flour, grains. That's the stuff that's going to be valuable. Nobody's going to care about your gold. So I'm sorry for all you gold bugs out there. You know, potatoes, right? You know, but we won't get into that. All right, so we follow and just follow. And sometimes, like if this is an internal swing, this is like a last swing broke, isn't it? It's like a last swing broke. So that's a little last swing broke, and then we can just keep following. And it's about the same size, right? It's close. It's not bad. It's somewhere in there. See, we've already run into a few tricky hiccups, right? Do we take the one that's still inside this bigger swing or not? Well, the best way to do it is just to work and see what's going on. Is this a swing? Yeah. Is it a little smaller? Yeah, it's a little smaller. Not by much. You know what? I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it. And so every time price pivots, we're going to watch the minors and watch the majors. And so if you were working this market, and remember, a new low confirms a swing high. So if you're watching this market, you see we got about the length of the red down here somewhere. About, you know, maybe. All right, so now, coming into Wednesday, you can see the major reaction leg we're going to measure against. So no matter how you want to draw your market, this is the facts jack, and this can be so helpful to our trading. That messes with your OCD. What does, Gary? Thanks for letting me know. I can go straight for it. The red? Would you like another color? Grace doesn't like my colors either. It's not the right size. Markets ain't perfect, right? What you can do, Gary, is say, all right, let's look at the swings on the way down after the low. So let's make a distinction, Gary. This is going to be the LSB swing, and then this will be its own swings, okay? How about that? Does that help? All right, good. And for some of this, right, Gary, we're going to find our own way. We're going to run into some hiccups. Now, remember, I don't want you guys to make anything work. That's totally against the point. Now we're right back to an investment that this has to work. We want to use this and not be used by this. And so we can definitely make the distinction that this is the last swing broke, meaning it's before we broke the major. All right? Yeah, and you do end up that's what curve fitting is, Gary. It's that whole investment thing we talked about. And we end up fooling ourselves. But I got to tell you, I've done practices where I've just sold every one of these reaction legs blindly. And pretty soon you start thinking you got a system because it's working pretty good. And then you start curve fitting a little bit here and there. You try to make things work, and then you get disappointed and you give up and you lose your investment. You come back because the market's always moving. And so we do have to approach this with a certain attitude. See, now I've got the facts. This is very objective, all right? No matter what you do with the mind, this is the biggest on the way down, all right? This is the big impulse leg now. So this is the major impulse leg coming down. And these are the biggest swings. And you can see them. They're hitting, right? They're hitting. But now they grew. So we can say, truthfully, that the minors gave, and we're pivoting on the major. There's no new low here, right? So this is my last swing, the same way this is my last swing up in here. All right. what did we just now learn truthfully? See, this is where things can maybe get a little bit tricky. So let's draw this and keep with our model. And if this is the reaction leg, it's going to be about yay big, right? And so now, price is up like this. It's bigger. See? It's bigger. It's bigger. All right? Now, it's up to us now. Yeah, blue got beat. Very simple. Red got beat, blue got beat. You can use that language. I use that language sometimes. Blue got beat. Red got beat. All right, now, this is where the transition gets tough for people. But let's just use some very good, simple definitions. Because now, right, we also want to follow that leg up. We haven't beat the major reaction leg yet, but we want to follow that leg up somehow. So we'll put another instruction here to follow See, now we get a little bit confusing, but we want to follow the reaction leg that is, see, this is still trying. It hasn't beaten this, but it's trying. So we want to follow that now, okay? And we want to use its own thing. And the very first instruction I'm going to say is, the first swing that we want to use is and we'll come up with a way to say this all a little more concise. So what we're going to use, once it switches, right, blue gets beat, right, the length of blue gets beat, but this didn't get beat. But we still want to follow this guy up. So what are we going to use to follow it? The LSB. Where is the LSB in this case? This isn't a swing. That's our swing. So that becomes our LSB. See, last swing broke. This becomes a brand new piece of structure for us. New high is made. And we will practice, don't worry. And so as soon as price pivots, we're going to follow it that way. See, it's just giving us very simple information. We were doing this. We were doing this. We were doing this. Oh, we're not doing that anymore. Okay, maybe we can follow it upwards. Boom. Not bad, right? And now, guess what we're following? Let's get this guy out to live. So now, guess what we're following? We're following swings up. Not even worried about that anymore. You guys get the picture? You see the switch, see the swap, and now we're following swings up. It's that simple. Now, as we're following swings up, this is my major because it is my major leg. right? It's my major leg. Now, come over here and look for any minor legs in this. And this is a messy market. This is a messy market. Look for any minor legs in this. All right. So that. Yeah, something like that. Or maybe it's this. And this is a messy market. It's the same thing. So even that minor, and we might have to just wait for this guy to carve it out for us. Okay? Kind of like this right now. It beat that. So we might have to wait for it to carve something out. So a minor got beat one way or the other. These little minors, however you cut it, are beat up. All right? So it might have to carve it out. But all I know for sure is that the major is pointing up. All right? The major is pointing up. And we got us a little swing right here. And now we'll follow this market, ignoring this. We'll follow this market. So you followed it into the change, and what we can learn is that into that change, maybe there's a possible, trade the other way into the change, maybe. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes it's an expansion, but now we have a way to look. And like I said, this is a bit of a busy, messy market. And if it's not clear, you let it be clear. Maybe this thing makes a new high and gives us a nice solid swing to follow here. Maybe the LSB, see, I'm looking a little closer now. Right? Maybe I'm not even considering mountain washes or any of that, Nate. That's one of the points we're going to do in the next few weeks, is we're just going to look at presses and swings. So let's look in here and see where there was a possible LSB. See, as I work this a little bit, I see that this is a possible LSB here. Because look, on this leg down, right? Let's do the definition. On this leg down, what is the biggest reaction leg? Is this it? You see how I'm kind of following the numbers? Yes, right, Grace? Right? So if I'm following each leg, that's my biggest. Okay, so that's going to become a last swing broke. Now, I'm right in that neighborhood. Okay? I'm right in that neighborhood. So now I'm looking at, these two. I'm looking at the major, I'm looking at the minor, just like that. And then we'll follow this market out. And if it's ever not clear to you or it's too much, right, drop the minors and just follow this major and see what it does. Because there's a place to play the minor, there's a place to play the major. All of the above. So let's do some more practice. I'm going to show you how this unfolds into some things as the week progresses. Let me find it. I had a chart from somebody who looked like they were leaning one way or the other. And so let's take a look at it. All right, there it be. So this is a messy market too. This is HG. This is going to be copper. All right, copper. We haven't done copper in a while. I used to do copper. All right, so we can see on the chart we're thinking about buying in here. Now let's take this chart apart with facts, and so we can say, all right, maybe there's a buy, maybe there's not a buy. I don't know. But let's take this same frame that they're using. So they're saying end of a long run. So let's take this same frame that they're using in copper, and we can follow this market out ourselves live and see if there's anything to learn from it. So copper is going to be HG. They were looking at a 60-minute. All right, so they're looking at a 60-minute copper. So this must be the long run they're talking about. And they're drawing, something like this. Something in this realm, right? I forgot what they were using, but something in this realm. Okay, so this is copper. As I look, it's kind of interesting just to frame this guy up. Here, I'm gonna give you an idea about what studying swings can eventually lead you to. And then we're just going to look at it by the numbers. All right. So if we were following it down, right? If we were following it down, that's our swing. Everybody, take a look real quick. All right. See the new high? All right. So I just want to give you an idea what studying swings can lead to. Do you see the zoom it makes in here? It's like if you have a median line set. And price comes through and zoom, retest. So you see the zoom? All right. So you should see that this is, this is your swing. Look in the center. Here's what I see. This is what we can lead to. All right, that's our last swing. Then we hit here, and then we zoom. Then we retest. All right, I'm going to key on the zoom retest here. Just like Andrew says, there's a high probability of zooming the median line. I'm going to key on the zoom retest. Don't have to be perfect, but somewhere in here. And then I'm going to take it out to here. You see how that mapped up? And that comes from swing practice. Right? That comes from swing practice. That comes from seeing this, and then, seeing this. And that comes from just eyeballing it and having a nice map for center, action, reaction, and your three types of trades. You got push, type 2, or type 3. So this is a good map for this. But this is what, our practice will lead to eventually. Now let's do it by the numbers. So if we're using this much data, we want to mark out our swing. We want to mark out our swing. We want to mark out our reaction leg. We want to mark out our reaction leg. So that's going to be our major reaction leg. If we are following it upwards, this is good to do in real time. And by the way, if you start doing this in real time or start even just practicing and you have a hard time, you're doing just perfectly. You're supposed to have a hard time. I've been practicing for a long time. I want you to practice for a long time because you can begin to see things, right? You can begin to see things when you practice for a long time. Okay, so price is rolling up now. Now I'm just going to take this impulse leg as it's gone above the high. I'm just going to follow swings. So now we have this impulse leg making swing. It's got a really big swing here, then another swing here. So a new high confirms that swing low. And you see price trying again. Oh boy, did they bag somebody here or what? I mean, just a few ticks. Not here. Okay. That's a good one. Okay, so now I'm not going to count that as a new high. So now I have an LSB, don't I? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to track this guy on the way down, and I'm going to track this guy. So I'm going to track the biggest leg in the major reaction leg. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to track the biggest leg in the major reaction leg. And that's current. What's the next biggest leg in the major reaction leg? Maybe it's something like this if we count it. See, we're playing now. Okay. All right, so it looks like I did dice this out. So maybe I will call this the LSB. Look, it's turning right around there, isn't it? All right, we'll give it to it. We'll give it to it. If we're wrong, but we'll give it to it. So we're going to follow this guy out live now. All right, so this is the length of that. This is the length of that. And let's see what this guy does in the meantime. And I'm not worried about all the machinations going. I'm just looking at this wave going down and this wave going down. That's it. So we're going to leave copper 60-minute on our sheet here to track. Now maybe we can go and look at some easier markets now, something a little bit simpler that we can follow. Now remember, I still want to follow the legs up and down, up and down. It's going to take a little practice. I'm going to have to do it a little bit more with this. So let's go over to some of these currencies here and see what we can work on. Let's look at some stuff from last week, right? If you were following your market down. The yen. You get a reaction. It beats that. So the next thing you want to do is do like this. But don't forget to follow your legs, whatever the biggest legs are. Okay? Don't forget to follow your legs of this piece right here. Don't forget to follow those legs, okay? And if it starts going down, then you want to follow the legs down. I want this to get real tricky and messy for you and everything else. If it starts going down, then grab the biggest leg you can follow and follow it down. See, I can't use this leg because it didn't make a new high. So now we follow this down and you follow this guy here. Oh, okay, now we have a bigger leg. See, this guy gets beat and we start rolling the other way. Now we can say we've got something like this. Let's just make these our standard colors. See how it carved itself out? Minor, major. And sometimes you got to wait a little while for the market to carve itself out. So we have this one. It did not pull back this far. It made a new swing. So in the impulse leg, which is this fits my definition, right, of the biggest swing going up. It does. It fits my definition of the biggest. So I can now track majors and minors of this impulse leg. But let's just stick with the majors now, okay? So sometimes the market grows like this and gives us our official minor. And then anytime price turns, you're going to look at the minor and you're going to look at the major. And then you're going to follow the legs down the same way, whatever it gives you. Whatever it gives you. Just follow the definitions, the biggest one in that leg. This gives me an indication that these are getting beat after this one met. And if this seems a little confusing right now, don't worry about it. We'll begin to put it together after a while. I purposely just want you to go practice. And now we have an LSB. And this should begin to teach us something about markets, how markets move. And now we're following the gray. So now we have a new impulse leg. See, we have a blue impulse leg. And now we're following the biggest leg, which happens to be that last swing broke. So this model simply looks like this. All right, we pull back the same size. And up here at the top, we're pulling back that gray here. And still running. All right, does that make some kind of sense? Just following it down, following it up, following it down, and you should begin to learn and orient yourself to any market. Basically, we want to follow the majors, find your major, and then find, as this thing pulls through, find your majors, okay? Find your majors, and then anytime it's rolling, find your majors along that new leg. And then anytime it pulls back, find your majors along that pullback leg. And then anytime it comes down, find your majors along that. And anytime it turns up, find your majors and start with the LSB. And the same definitions apply. It's almost hypnotic, right? It gets a bit confusing when I add majors and minors of each leg, Nate. And so it's practice. And the reason I'm adding majors and minors of each leg is, like here, there's a lot of times when price gets up here, we can do like we just looked at in the oil. And, oh, buy that minor switch. This one didn't do it. Buy that minor switch into a major. And it can get very, very simple. It can get very, very simple. Both are swings. Both have the same definitions. And this also leads us to median line work and action-reaction work at some point. See how I did the zoom retest like in the copper? See that? There's nothing wrong with the lines, right? The only reason I'm drawing some of these lines to show you this stuff right now is just as a teaser of something to look forward to, so you don't think you're always just doing boring swings, because these swings represent these lines. See this one right here? See this minor? This is a median line set. This is often what it looks like. See? Center, median line set along that. That's a median line set covering the impulse leg. See how we mark? I mean, isn't it gorgeous when we draw? But now it starts to get, you're looking at lines, and do I do a test? Do I do a retest? Did it zoom? But you see how it's just showing us its thing here. And a lot of times it is this beautiful, that this minor is the median line. It is the median line set. This impulse leg, this minor in the impulse leg is the median line. And when it falls out, well, it's telling you maybe we're coming back to this particular major. And then I just come over here and I can use simple median line rules if I want to come in here and play with this and say, zoom, retest, action, reaction. And so the lines are there to help us see some of this, but we definitely want an understanding of what's going on rather than just hoping and praying that the median line holds because somebody drew up a statistic. And by the way, we talked about bias. Anybody that's doing statistics knows there's lies, and more lies, because whoever's doing the statistics is going to have a little bit of bias to them. You can do a statistic about how often it returns to the median line, but then you better figure out what you're going to say is a turn up here. So there's a lot of little ways we can do things. But we want to understand the tool. We say, we have this, and we have this. Makes sense? And so now we can follow the yen pretty simply moving forward, can't we? We have a major. We have a minor. So we can follow it pretty simply moving forward. Eventually, we're going to also add the press structures into this mix. But this is going to give us enough practice to where we can learn something a little bit more about swings, and sometimes it really is just as easy as waiting for that reaction leg to hit. I mean, you come up here to the CAD, and you got to ask yourself, how easy is that? Without even adding anything to it. You see what I'm saying? We're not even adding pressure cookers or gaps. See, we're just seeing swings. And we have to ask ourselves, how easy is that? Does it mean it's going to hold? Not a guarantee. But let me ask you guys this. If you're following swings on the way up from this guy, and you wanted a confirmation, what might you use? A confirmation that we're turning down. Minor swings, right, Raj? An LSB or minor swings. We can use the same tool in a minor fashion. We can use an LSB in the minor, right? If we're following this, you say, all right, what's the swings going up? Something like that. See, something like that. And as it comes off, you can ask, right? You can watch this thing. It's not really it's making itty-bitty swings here. See, there's no LSB. Okay, so as we watch this thing turn up, so remember, now we beat red. Red's beat, okay? And now we're following. There's no LSB. Do we now have a swing? And if you're watching the recording, pay attention to this. Do we now have a swing? Can you now follow a swing in this new impulse leg? Yes. It's easy to see because we know the definition of a new low confirms a high. And then we can take and now we have something to follow. So you can imagine putting an order in now, thinking about, well, remember thinking about something like this? Because these buyers are not doing it. I know we're landing on this. I know. See, I see this too. I see this too. That's a truth. Okay? We did that. But the major swings down. That's a truth also. One of these guys is going to work. And you just keep following it. Boom. Same size swing. You can see this guy isn't going to work here. And new low. And then you keep doing the same thing. Copy it. Copy it. See, now you have a way real time that we can follow this market out and just keep working it and making decisions. I'm not saying there aren't going to be clues along the way that it's going to turn. I'm just saying this is a practice for us to learn something personally So take your mind off the result, what we're going to get out of it, and think about what we can learn as you do this your own self, right? First, we need to learn how to do a practice like this. Right? Same size, same size. Okay, red got beat. We're now at blue. Let's just follow this market out live. I'm not saying you can't go against it, right? Anybody see anybody see the press structure here? Right, there's a press structure too. Might as well throw a little press structure work in. Why is it a press structure? Same size swings, pull back into each other, and then expand. See it, Gina? All right. So, no matter what you're doing, them's the facts. And that's current. All right, that's current. Now, sometimes markets will get a bit tricky about what it wants to do, but what it's doing now is swinging down, and it's trying. Obviously, this gap is now trying to hold it. If it changes, guess what? We'll know it changes. And I'm not against, listen, I'm not against buying this. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against buying that. I buy those all the time. I bought this one. Of course, I cursed myself for not hopping on this one last week, I think. But one thing you'll notice is for every time you're waiting for a change in behavior, every time you're waiting for a change in behavior, every time you're trying to get long and waiting for a change in behavior, you might realize one day that you might have got short once, made money, short twice, made money, short 3 times, made money, short 4 times, oh, now I got busted. Or you might get short 2 or 3 times, make money, and then get busted. Hey, good stuff. You see it all the time, right, Gary? You see it in your own trading. Here, watch. Watch. Boom. Same size. Let me get long. Boom. Oh, I got stopped. Still made money. I take a little bit of a stop, and I take a little bit of a stop. I take a big profit. I still made money on that. You guys get that? I still made money on that. And then guess what I do? I turn around and go the other way. Now the markets are going to go, this is, it's an interesting little coil. The markets are going to do these interesting little things. Let's grab one more market live and just map it. Yeah, 50% is not so bad, right, Nate? And this is what I want people to sort of see in their practice. I'm not making a system here. But I do want to sort of grab your head a little bit and turn it in a certain direction to see some things other than the way we're normally looking at things. Oh, the GBP. Okay, so Nate says the GBP is an interesting one. All right, so let's look at the interesting one. You'll find as you do this type of swing practice, the amount of data you use will show you different things. And what I'm going to tell you is if you get really confused, just zoom in. All right? But let's use this. It's a bit of a lot of data here, right? But we want to draw very specifically to see things. As you're coming down, where's the major and minor swings? Let's map it. Let's map it. Top left, a lot of data. Yeah, you know, if you want, we can use little data, you know, use little bitty data. You can do it any which way you want, right? You can do it any which way you want. One thing you might want to notice, last week, starting Monday, all the way to Friday, it did only these little guys there, right? The whole week. Oh, isn't that a beautiful press structure? This is what you want to see in your review. Right? The whole week. That's all it did. It's beat that now. That's interesting. Some weeks will be like that, tiny little, but they each made a lot of money, right? So imagine this, Nate. You know, you're over here, you go like this. You say, oh, let's get short. Take a little money at new lows. Let's get short again. Take a little money at new lows. Let's get short again. Oh, maybe I'm stopped out. Actually, you know, that might not have stopped you out. But let's say 20 ticks. Let's say you got stopped. Did you make money? Just doing that. Yeah, absolutely. That made money, right? You got short once. You can use simple targets. We can use impulse legs if you want. Boom, boom. Boom, boom, right? Take your money. Take your money. Try it again. You made money. Boom, boom. And you got short. Get used to getting turned. It happens. But since these are little swings, Edward said that was a lot of data. Since these are tiny little swings, it's trying to make a bigger swing here, but it hasn't done it. So I'm going to just go ahead and use more data. You don't have to. You can wait and let it find out. It's up to you. There's no dogmatic rule here. This is one of those things I want people to play with. The amount of data used when doing this practice really changes things around, and I want you to see that. This is why I started that CL at a particular point and said, let's grow it from here. So if we do this, we still want the ability to map this guy. And we want to say that that's my biggest swing on the board, and that's its reaction leg. Now, you want the ability to say the next biggest swing. Something like that. And I'm just going to make the distinction that it's inside. And I'm going to maybe make a noticing that it's also the LSB. So you see how we're even though it's stupid looking, you see how we're structuring it, how we're mapping it? This is what we want the ability to do. All right, so let's come down here and look at this. Where does this land? All right, now I've done a lot of work. I'm not thinking about much. I'm not thinking about gaps. I'm not thinking about sideways things or pressure cookers or anything else. Because if we do too much, we're going to pick the structure that we want to get the trade we have a bias for. We're just going to slap everything at the wall and something will stick. We want the training, all right? If you do the training, all that stuff is going to be in your body. It's going to be in your bones somewhere. You don't need to go grabbing it and making things happen with it. If you do the training with the pressure cookers and the presses and the gaps and this, all that's going to be in the bones. Don't go fetch it all the time. This is a practice to simplify. Now, from here, I can draw very, very simply. If I wanted to, I could do the same old trick with this action-reaction line. Zoom retest. See it? Everybody see my use of Zoom retest 3 times today? Boom. Close. Close. It's also interesting to put the measurement of the minor and major and see what the structure lands in. Yes, that's going to be a next step, Nate. But let's just, if we're drawing median lines, let's just draw this guy. See the center? Zoom retest, retest. All right. You're mapped with a median line now. And as Nate says, it's also going to be interesting to see, and it's a very good learning to see what structure it lands in if it holds. For instance, we did this one pretty much as it happened, right? What structure did this balance, I'm going to call this a balance swing. What structure did that balance swing land in? Well, just work it backwards, and then you see, oh, there's a press structure in here. Expand. And so, do this stuff at your own pace. But if you do too much, after we practice swings, we're going to add press structures. So, like I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to be working on swings and press structures, okay? We're going to be working on swings and press structures. Right now, today we're just working on swings. As Nate says, you can get curious. What structure would this land in? Well, this is going to land in a gap. Or maybe it is a little press in here, but it's going to land in this guy. And that's going to give us information one way or the other. And if it turns, then we follow that guy on up. All right, so it is a lot of data. But that's my current map in this thing. I'm not forcing, I mean, that's a big, ugly looking structure here, you know. There's a nice press. I'm not going to force things to happen. I'm just going to watch this. It's going to be hard, guys, right? I teach a lot. Too much, right? Too much. That's when I'm going to start yelling, Nate. Too much. If you think about it, it confuses us. Too much. Right? It is a lot of data, but notice how I took this lot of data and made it simple. Sure, it's a lot of data, but the only thing I see is this and this. A minor swing and a major. That's all I see. And that's what we're fostering our abilities towards. So we can see the waves and, you know, we can relax a little bit. All right, so today was just a start. I'm going to wrap this up here. Today was just a start. We've mapped some markets. We've started following some swings. Practice a little bit. Practice in older markets. Practice in newer markets. Practice live. And thanks for your patience earlier. Lots to learn. And I'm going to say, let's limit all the stuff we're looking at to just swings. And then we'll add the presses, okay? So let's limit all this stuff, and then we can add in stages. So thank you, Grace and Raj and Pete. I appreciate you guys and your patience, Phil. And we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Take care.